My name is Jennifer Musial. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the Associate Professor of Women's and Gender Studies and the chair of a yet-to-be-named merged department that includes Women's and Gender Studies, as well as African and African American Studies, Latin American, Caribbean, and Latino Studies. And in fact, our department is undergoing our Renaissance period, and we are looking for a new name. So we are asking all NJCU students to participate in that process. What I want you to do is I want you to check your NJCU email for a link to a survey that allows you to vote on a new name and gives us feedback on our curricula and our programs. Our department houses minors in African and African American Studies, Latin American, Caribbean, and Latino Studies, Sexuality and Queer Studies, and Women's and Gender Studies, as well as a major in Women's and Gender Studies. Please see the survey that's circulating around for a place to offer your thoughts on how we might grow additional bachelor's programs or additional majors here at NJCU. Another hat that I wear is acting as co-principal investigator with my English department colleague, Dr. Carolyn Wilkinson, sitting here, on a Mellon-funded grant called Digital Ethnic Futures Consortium, or DEFCon, D-E-F-C-O-N for short. This $3 million grant is spread across 4 regional public institutions that serve communities and students of color. The grant's goal is to build capacity at our campuses in digital humanities as it intersects with ethnic studies. One of our goals here at NJCU is to offer a minor in digital humanities, hopefully forthcoming soon. If you are in your first year or maybe even your second year here at NJCU, the hope is that you will be able to the option minoring in digital humanities before you leave. A major principle of NJCU's DEFCon is to build relationships with community partners and local artists to break that often campus community divide that we have, and to imagine digital ethnic futures together for community engaged learning. In addition to these, we offer opportunities for students to become paid co-researchers. We have job openings now. So I would encourage you to check out our Instagram page, which is at DEFCONNJCU, which is DEFCon NJCU, or find me afterwards to learn about these positions. I first met Duquann Sweeney through a conversation about community engaged learning on January 21st, 2022. Yes, I did go back and check my notes. I was excited by the project that he was working on with fellow artist Jin Jung, who is joining us on Zoom. So hey, Jin, remotely today, called We're Here, Jersey City, which is a public art meets history initiative to foreground the important local history and people of Jersey City. When we opened up the second year of the Artist in Residence program, it was a no-brainer to invite Duquann and Jin to be a part of that through our Artist in Residence program for spring 2023. During that semester, Jin and Duquann visited NJCU classrooms and created 3 engraved blue plates that put NJCU on the We're Here map, so that we literally became part of Jersey City history. These plates recognize the essential contributions of artists Charles Gaines and Okwe and Wezar, who are 2 extraordinary, renowned, and acclaimed Black artists that went to NJCU. Yes, we have incredible talent here at NJCU. The third plate honors Dr. Betty Shabazz, who was enrolled here at what was then called Jersey City State College to finish her education degree. Black history runs deep at NJCU, and NJCU is part of this Black history. Please take note of the Charles Gaines and Okwe and Wezar blue plates that are up on the entryway coming into the building. We'd love to see you take photos with the blue plates and tag us at DEFCON, DEFCONNJCU on Instagram, and or at WEREHEREJC, which is We're Here, Jersey City, on Instagram. A formal installation of all 3 plates will happen later this semester, and we hope that you will join us to celebrate this campus community partnership. Let me turn things over to my wonderful colleague, Dr. Jermaine Halpin, in African and African American Studies, to give you a formal introduction to Duquann Sweeney.
Thank you very much, Dr. Musial, and good morning, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Duquann Sweeney. He's a self-taught photographer born and raised in Jersey City here in New Jersey. He's also the founder of the Royal Men Foundation, a nonprofit organization that was founded in 2012. As a photographer, Duquann is a part of a long list of Black photographers that carry the tradition of photographing Black communities, showing the dignity and beauty within them. In 2021, Duquann had his first solo exhibition at Hoboken Historical Museum, Upper Gallery. Duquann has been an artist in residence at NJCU right here since January 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, students, all please welcome Mr. Duquann Sweeney.
Thank you. Thank y'all so much for being here. You know, it just feels good, man, seeing, seeing the beautiful faces out here. And, pretty much, like you said, I'm Duquann Sweeney, photographer based in Jersey City. I'm gonna go later on about my work later on, but, pretty much I like to chill and relax. So we can relax and chill. We're gonna have a fun engagement today, very, educational, fun piece, some strong points and things like that. So what I'm gonna do is give y'all like a visual timeline, and we just wanna, we're just gonna go to a couple of images, and I'm gonna say a couple of words and speak on personal things. I just want to keep y'all one thing in mind. I want y'all to keep in. I want y'all to think about this talk or surveillance as ongoing, right? Sade Hartman, she would use the afterlife of slavery, right? So something that's continuing. So it didn't stop. Surveillance didn't stop, right? So surveillance and art, from slave patrols to modern day CCTV cameras. People of color live under surveillance. However, in the midst of watchful eyes, artists use their artwork to fight and change the narrative. Go to the next slide. So one of the first forms of surveillance, started during like chattel slavery here in America, right? As we see here, the act, the laws of slavery, right? So in this particular slide here, it shows, in the paper, the ad in the paper about slave law in America. So it was highly circulated in America, slave laws. Well, you could go to the next slide. So slaves laws in America, came about in the late 1960s, early 1970s, right? Where, the slave population, Africans in America, especially in the South, were increasing, right? And so slave masters would put slave laws into effect. And it was also fearful because when slaves here in America, in Americas, they rebelled by running away, fighting back. You might not hear some of this in your local history books or, things like that while you was coming to school. But yeah, slaves basically fought back in America. So the slave masters had to keep control. So that's what we see here. And this description it tells a description of, I got the screen right here, but it's so common looking up. It tells a description of slaves that ran away. So this would, again, circulate in papers and things like that. We go to the next slide. So I'm just going to give y'all an idea of what was happening in America. And as we can see, the brutality that slaves would face. Now, it was a community effect. So when we think about policing today and community policing in America, it was something that everybody joined in to do, right? So states like Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina put these laws in place saying, the population is increasing. We need whites to join in and catch a slave. So if you catch slaves in America, if you catch a slave, right, you get tax write-off, like you are exempt from paying taxes. You would get rewarded like tobacco, money, so it was a joint effort to control, property. That's what they would call, the enslaved Africans, property. And when we think about that today, right, it's like wow, right? And that made me think about, you can go to the next slide. It made me think about, and this was real emotional bringing it up. I just brought Trayvon Martin up and George Zimmerman up because it was a similar, like again, when I keep y'all in mind the afterlife of slavery. If y'all notice, the story of Trayvon Martin in Florida, coming from the store, and he was looked at by George Zimmerman as a suspect, right? Someone that was dangerous, and he claimed that it was, people breaking in. And when I brought this up today, I was like, when I brought it up, while working on my presentation, I actually really got emotional because I just was saying to myself, like, and I'm quite sure some of y'all probably feel the same, Trayvon Martin should be here, right? He should be here with us today. And unfortunately, he's not, because, a person like George Zimmerman feel like we just saw in the previous slide to apprehend, right? To punish, right? African Americans, right? We go to the next slide. So I just had to bring that up. And also, this was, Slave Patrol was an organization. I mean, when you think about the slave badge here and the people that was involved with it, right? The wicked, I would use the word wicked imagination, So, but I want to fast forward it a little bit more, right? Go into more current times. So here is Emmett Douglas. Emmett Douglas was a member of the Black Panther Party. He was also the artist for them. He was responsible for printmaking and making the prints. And Emmett Douglas, he in his artwork, he used his artwork to bring about messages about what was happening to people of color, not just Black, but people of color in America. And and we know, some of the history of Black Panther Party. They were, very powerful. Excuse me. So yeah, we go move to the next slide. I just raised my hand instead of telling you to move to the next slide. Okay. So, like I said, I just want to give y'all a visual of, what was going on in America, and you can see in this image here, officers, and he would describe them, or Black Panthers would describe them, or people in general would describe them as, pigs. And here we see a Black man, bound up, gagged up, ropes around his ankle, wrists, and waist. And it seemed like he's in a courthouse, and the police officers or pigs are holding bats, right? The brutality, African Americans face in America. So Emmett Douglas, like I said, used his artwork to, bring forth messages. Next slide. So you can see all power to the people, right? Slogan that, some of us still use to this day. I love this image here, right? Because it shows an African American woman holding a spear with a shotgun rifle on her back. And also the Afro was represented radicalism, to us, to some radicalism, right? It was a powerful image to wear, or to wear your hair in the Afro, right? Powerful image to show that, right? It shows pride, it shows dignity of who you are. And that was really important for African Americans, right? Blacks here in America, to show that pride during the times of, you know, racial segregation, racism, you know, discrimination. So we always fought back. We always had, you know, that rebellious spirit about us. So we just, you know, we just want us to just sit with some of the slides. So during the time of Black Panthers and civil rights movement, FBI agents, FBI, COINTELPRO were, you know, had their way of dismantling organizations, dismantling, you know, the movement, right? The Black movement here in America, right? So you go to the next slide. So this guy, I'm quite sure some of y'all know who he is, right? J. Edgar Hoover, right? Was the FBI, you know, director for 37 years. His job was to infiltrate, you know, penetrate the organizations, right? And he would wiretap, you know, people like Malcolm X, Angela Davis, Martin Luther King Jr., James Baldwin. I mean, you name it. You know, if you fell under this radar or FBI radar, they would use everything, even, you know, people that look like some of the people that were fighting, you would use them informants and force them to gather intelligence and information, right? Again, this is an image that shows, what was happening, the COINTELPRO and the Black Panther members, being surveillance. So again, I just want y'all to keep that in mind, that, keep in mind the ongoing, the afterlives of slavery. So again, I'm gonna fast forward. This is one of my photos, right? So in here we have, in the middle, we have Nicole Fleetwood. Nicole Fleetwood is a writer, professor, of art critic, and the author of a book, Marking Time, The Age of Mass Incarceration, Art in the Age of Mass Incarceration. And so the young man in there, James Yaya, is also, he's an artist, a visual artist that served time in prison. And I brought them up because I want to move forward when we think about surveillance, right? And one of the places that's highly surveillance in design are prisons, right? Prisons are the structure. When we think about a prison, we think about high towers with guards, posted up and looking down on surveillance, right? Ready to looking down on inmates, people that's incarcerated with weapons, ready for something to break out. So in prison, we have artists that also was rebellious, right? That had the spirit of bringing forth messages about the conditions they were living under while in prison. So personally, I know James, I call him Yaya, and Nicole personally, and this was 2022 during James' opening at Ballery Park. So we go to the next slide. So James and so many others, I advise y'all get a chance to check out the book Marking Time. So many others, I'm just using James because I know him personally, that would use artwork in jail, right? They would use found papers, anything you can name, state property, court papers to put on, to draw on, to make artwork, right? And also to tell, again, about the conditions that were happening in the prisons across America. You go ahead, next slide. Next slide. Now, I love this image here because it shows an artist and maybe an art class while in prison and painting, making a painting. And sometimes when we think about artists or people in that's incarcerated, we think of someone that's a beast or a thug or a straight criminal, but they are human beings that maybe just got caught up in a bad situation, put themselves in prison. And like so many family members that I know, personal people I know. Again, just showing, the sexuality of guards that was happening, right? Go to the next slide. Again, this is another person that was incarcerated, Tameka Cole, and she would use, and she was, she's from Alabama, and she used her artwork to express, again, the conditions of what she was going through, right? She was very, angry, right? And the artwork helped her express. So, so all the art, all the artists that's here, or people, writers, journalism, I just want y'all also to think about the way that we use art and the way that we can, bring forth messages, right? Especially during this time when we think about, war and homelessness and poverty, and just, all stuff that's goes on in America right now. We can just use our artwork to express that. Go to the next slide. Live from death row. And it shows, a man being injected, death penalty, poisoning. It's horrible. You go to the next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Again, I want you, to think about surveillance. Now, some people see this as the ankle bracelet, When we talk about, again, from the beginning, when I first talked about, slaves they had to use what they call a pass system, where slaves had to walk around with a pass, right? And then if you get caught from the master plantation, or if you act too long, you are apprehended, and you will probably get beat and sent back into your plantation, back to your master. So, an ankle bracelet, electronic tagging, it's the same. It's basically the same thing, right? That if a person has an ankle bracelet on and is out too long or away from home, they likely to get sent back to jail, right? They get sent back into jail just by stepping out. And it's, just imagine that, right? You can't visit your family member down a block, or your child, or, even hold a job at that point. Because you can't move, you can't monitor, right? You can't move around like you want to. The next slide. So this is, one of my favorite, as I say, I'm, speeding up the pace a little bit. This is one of my favorite photographers, Jamel Shabazz, right? Jamel Shabazz, he photographed, in the 80s, he's still photographing now, the scene of New York City, right? We'll go to the next slide. So Jamel, similar to me, will photograph the everyday life, right? The fashion, the things like that, the fashion, the swag. What's the word we use now? The drip, right? He photographed the drip. And during the time, when you think about the 80s was a time of mass incarceration, a time of war on drugs and things like that. So similar to me, right, he wanted to change the narrative. He wanted to show what he saw of his community and people that was in his community. A Time Before Starbucks. I love that title. You know, and yeah, we could pause right here and say so. Like in the '80s, like Ronald Reagan was the president, and like I said, war on drugs was happening, and also this idea of welfare queen, right? That Black women were on welfare, and they would use it to buy lavish things and things like that, which we know that wasn't the case. So, and like again, this photograph shows a woman holding her child, right? And and the pride that she had by the gaze that she gave back to Jamel in photographs. Mhm. So now we're going to go into like some of my work, right? And what I did, come in for this, for this talk was to photograph the CCTV cameras around Jersey City. So the next few images, y'all gonna see images of the CCTV cameras in the neighborhoods that's happening right now. Like I just recently made these photographs. The photographs, I purposely didn't try to make the photograph pretty. I used a film camera, so y'all gonna see the grind, because I wanted to show how I felt when I looked at the photograph. Not so pretty. I don't have like a good aesthetic, a good thought about being surveillance and always being looked at, right? So the reason why, like I said, I wanted to show y'all because after the images of the slides or the CCTV cameras, you're going to see some of my work and how I view my community. So this is on New Street. This was the other day. Like I just recently made this camera, right? This is right by the school, public school on New Street. And majority of the cameras are in the Black community, right? Communities of color. You won't see these cameras downtown, right? So I want y'all to question that. Why is that, right? And again, the afterlife of slavery, right? Surveillance, we always being looked at constantly, constantly always being viewed. And I grew up in Sell-Off Court, right? I don't know if anybody is familiar with Sell-Off Court. I was born and raised in Sell-Off Court. My mom's still lived there, right? So me growing up, I was, cool kid. I was the silly, like the kid that made everybody laugh and joke around. And as I got older, I started to become more conscious around the things around, right? I started to be more conscious of the conditions that I was living under, my family members were living under, my friends was living under, right? And also being more conscious of, what media depict or describe Blacks or, Latinos and Native Americans in America, right? Like, yeah, so here we go to the next slide. So knowing that, right, my idea or the goal I wanted to do when I picked up the camera was to show what my community means to me. And I would call myself a lover of my culture, right? I'm a lover of people, right? I try to have a righteous imagination, right? I always, I always felt myself engaged, right? I always put myself like a part of the community, right? I never put myself like I was better or I'm better than anybody else. Anybody know me, I'm like, just like anybody else, right? I'm like a paycheck away from just being poor, right? Or just dealing with the struggles of just paying bills and everything else like that. So when I photograph, I like to photograph the dignity of that, like to bring up that strength, because I feel like I'm no better than nobody else, right? And one time someone said to me, like, Duquann, man, why you photographing these people that's, down and out, right? Like, why you photographing these bombs? And it hurt me so deeply when that person said that to me. Right. And I'm just saying to myself, like, we all in the same neighborhood. We all right next to each other. They deserve beauty. They deserve to be called beautiful just like you do. Maybe because they don't have a gold chain on or nice sneakers on or, the finest clothes, but they deserve that same respect. And they really do. So this is going into my work. It's kind of like easy to talk, about your own work than other people's work. So you'll see me loosen up a little bit. So, like, again, this is a photograph that I made of a young lady on Martin Luther King, on an ad, what we call it. And this was during the time with the camera, the CCTV camera was right above. Let me just, just go, we could skip. And again, yeah, we could pause right here. This is one of my famous photographs right here. A lot of people enjoy. I love it too, right? And this photograph, Matt was here. He was one of the organizers. This was during Juneteenth celebration on Grand Avenue. And it was a time of the Black Lives Matter protest was going on. We was dealing with a pandemic. So the organizers put something together like, we need a relief of all the stuff that was going on. It was a joyful event. Joyful event. You go to my Instagram page, you'll see the current image. But what I love about this image, and it goes with this talk today, is that, we have the organization Jump for Jerry, doing a double dutch contest or a show. And it shows a young man lifted off the ground like he's levitating, right? And we just think about the word levitating, and that's what we're doing today, right? As students, as educators, as artists, we just levitating through these times right now, right? I find myself levitating all the time. And again, just to show the joy of life in Jersey City, right? No matter what, politicians or someone say about my community, I always see it different. I see the joy, I see the beauty. So, I grew up, again, like I said, sellout poet, and similar to the two young ladies here, during a hot summer day, we would turn on the fire hydrant, right? And, play in the water and, and those buckets of water on people and things like that, right? But what we don't see in this image is, and what would happen often, is that the police officers would come and shut the fire hydrant down, right? During a time, in this photograph, I lived in the buildings right across the street where the young ladies are playing in the fire hydrant. So it was during the heat waves. I was like, what? Let me go outside and make the images of the children playing in the fire hydrant.
It's cute.
Thank you. So again, during the time, police officers would come and shut the fire hydrant down, right? When we find a way to make joy, it's always will be interrupted, right? So what we do, they come use they tools to shut the fire hydrant down. As soon as they leave, they'll come back. You go to the next slide. Again, this is just, everyday life. Young man in Audubon Park. They was playing baseball. And I just asked a young man, can I photograph? I love this photograph because it just shows a young man, and some may view him as a thug or a criminal because of his braids and his white beater he has on and his jeans and his sneakers and things like that. But he just was a, a regular young man just playing sports in Audubon Park. I didn't show a lot of images. I just wanted y'all to just, sit. And Black love. I had to bring back love because that's important, right? This image is the last image, right? This is images of my daughter, right? She's 10 years old. At the time, she was 9. It's just, about to be 9. She was 29 that year. And this area is where I grew up. This is actually Sellout Court, right? And right behind it, you really can't see it because of the glare of the light, but it's it's one of the CCTV cameras that we showed earlier, right behind her, right? And she's holding dead flowers. So the dead flowers, like I said, my mom still lived right across the street. So I told my daughter to, grab the dead flowers and just go outside and make an image, right? And I told her to grab the dead flowers because the flowers represented, the biases and, the stereotypes that Black children face, right? In America, right? Children are treated as adults and adults like children, right? Think about that. Children are treated as adults. Like policies made up, they snatched up or just sexualized, like she's moving too fast or she's fast for her age and, things like that. So, again, I just wanted to show that aesthetic of, her beauty and the importance of her being in the same location where I grew up at, right? Same ground she's standing on. I used to play football there all the time. Yeah, so that's the last image, and that's the conclusion of my talk. I hope y'all, I hope it, hit y'all in the heart. I hope it was meaningful, y'all. We can open it up to questions, and hopefully, this is my favorite part. Hopefully, we get some engagement going on. I can ask you some questions. I could, try to answer them the best way I could. And those online, so thank y'all.
You can take a breath, take everything in. So appreciate your time. Thank you. I have questions, but I can always ask you questions. This is the space for you all. If you want to take a moment, if you have a question written down, you want to write a question down, I'll review what's been going on in our chat and see if there's any questions coming in here.
First and foremost, thank you, bro. This was moving. To have it right here in the city too is beautiful. I guess my first question, because I feel like I got a couple, but we can move around. What made you make the connection between the surveillance of the period where Africans were enslaved in terms of the Fugitive Slave Act and those laws that followed that to the modern day period of surveillance? Like, what were how did you begin to make the connection?
Good question, man. Great question. Again, I'm a history buff, right? I'm a person that read lots of books whenever I have time to. If I'm not playing my Nintendo Switch, I'm reading a book. Like I said, thinking about Saidiya Hartman book, and she mentioned again, like the afterlife of slavery, that just resonated with me, right? And, and just knowing and just lived experience of being, surveillance, again, I remember a time where, videos, local rappers would make videos, right? With camcorders. And, police officers were swarm the area, right? And like, yo, what y'all doing? What y'all doing? And they draw, I remember, actually, police officer, drew guns on me and my friends and laid us on the ground, right? So like lived experiences, right? Basically, you know, had me made the connection between, you know, what was happening, you know, then and what's now. Like, it never stopped, right? And, you know, as artists or just in people in general, we always, you know, continue to fight and always we break barriers and new barriers is always formed. So yeah, it just, you know, it's, yeah, just lived experience, just knowing, you know, history. Question.
I want to just say that the artist Yaya,
Yeah, yeah,
reminds me of prison song, that prison song
Mhm.
with Q-Tip and Mary J. Blige.
Yes.
And that was like a really, I remember watching that as a kid. So just to see like the correlation there is really good. And then also, just thank you for.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Question.
I had a question about the slide where you showed the female guards. Can you go a little bit more about what that means and because I've never seen an image like that before, and I've never seen guards being portrayed as victims in prison.
Yeah, right. Pink. Is yeah, go just go back up. Forgot what number it is. Yeah, again, this was Yaya, you know, and you seeing Yaya work, you know, in person, you know, Yaya again, like, you know, he would, you know, show what the guards and everything, you know, were doing, right? And, you know, and we don't see like a negative image of a guard, right? But there are, you know, some guards would sleep with inmates, right? You know, or just had sexual behaviors, right? That were, you know, that was dumb, you know. Yeah, so seeing his work, you know, just like you, it was like impactful. And Yaya he's probably on the call. If not, he's going to see it. So I'm quite sure he's going to, be thankful that you asked that question. Yeah, I mean, and this is the work that I show is this is the clean version. I'll be honest with you, it's the clean version. It gets deeper and bolder. So yeah, I suggest you on social media. Yaya is on social media. Just search him up and you can see more of his work. Any more questions? Oh, there we go.
Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I want to know, when did you first sort of perceive surveillance as an issue? Like, cameras are everywhere, they've been around for a long time. But at what point did it first sort of strike you as being something that was not just, normal? And then what made you want to pursue that as an art, as a means to sort of show a mirror of society?
You know what? I'm critical, right? I'm real critical of what happens in my community, right? And again, like when we look the design of the city, right? German city is very diverse, right? But it's also segregated when you think about it, right? We have, Latinos, Blacks in one community, then we go downtown, we have, a mix of, whites, Asians, and things like that. So it's real diverse, right? And looking around, right, and knowing that the city was putting up cameras, I'm like, why are these cameras just in this area? Why? Why is that, right? Why is that? And the language that was put forth, right? Like when we think about policies, right, that affect us, right? Cameras, money, right? It takes money to to build and have these cameras tough in the community because they have to pay for data and things like that. So me knowing the conditions of, again, around, my community and the things that, we face, it just was like, I have to say something. Again, I think like, if you're a writer, artist, journalist, or just a person that want to become vocal, it's important that, we voice that, right? We voice that concern, right? I want you to just use your imagination about ways that we can, speak about issues to us. Like, again, like started a nonprofit organization in 2012, right? And it was a men's support group. But it graduated into doing a lot of community work, right? And like I said, just being aware. Like my father was one of those, he's still living. He was one of those men that was like, Black people, the ones on the street that's not doing anything, they ain't, right? They ain't nothing, right? And me growing up, listening to shows like It Is with Gil Noble. And Gil Noble was a journalist, and and he hosts like It Is. And Like It Is was a show. It was a show that talked about the conditions again of Black people in the civil rights movement, people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, Angela Davis, so on and so on and so on. Listening to that and listening to my father, right? I had to stand up to him. It was basically like, no, Dad, this ain't the reason why we living like this. It's because of policies that begin like laws that affect us, right? The wealth gap, the just in general, the segregation. Even when we think about health, right? Like how Black women would go into and think about the body, right? Black women would go into the hospital and not get the right treatment, or the abortion laws that's happening right now, the surveillance of the body. I just started to become, more critical of, things like that. And just growing up and just want to say my piece,
Oh.
Mhm.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming out and being here and doing this presentation. I find you mentioned in the very beginning that when it came to runaway slaves, it was a community effort to capture them.
Yes.
And I think that's also reflected in how we're seeing America become a surveillance state, because
Right.
it's not only the cameras in the community, it's people feeling comfortable taking photos and videos of people who they think are doing wrong in the community,
Right.
people who they think are weird and are judging them on social media.
Absolutely. Right. It's absolutely well said. Thank you. Well said.
I was gonna say, I remember when, thank you for the presentation, it was very informative. And I was gonna say, I remember when Mayor Bloomberg was mayor of New York City, he had that, I don't remember the name of it, Stop and Search.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a big one, and they said like they were more likely to actually search like those who are of a minority ethnic background, like Blacks, like
Right.
I think even Latinos.
Right.
Do you what's your position on it?
I mean, it's wicked, right? Bottom line, it's a wicked thing, right? Like stop and frisk, and what's going on with the immigration in
Yeah.
New York City and around the world, right? That's like the hot topic, right?
Yeah.
What we going to do with these people? What we going to move them, right? To always in surveillance, right? Always being looked at, right? My take is just that. So, I want us to, question, that's what I want us to do right now. That's the goal, to question, these things, right? Like the things that's happening to America. America is built on diversity. When we look in this classroom right now, we are diverse, right? We are a diverse group of people from different backgrounds and different cultures, right? And we all can relate, right? And the way that we go find common ground with each other is just look at the most vulnerable people, right? The most vulnerable group of people, right? In America. Like immigration that's going on, right? When we think about that, right, policies, people are actually trying to remove people that's trying to make a everyday living, right? And just trying to get by, trying to become what America say it is, the land of the free, and to, to have, great things in the house and dog, where people really are trying to pursue these things, but, politician and the idea of whiteness, is in play, and it's always been in play, right? And we have to point the finger at, not at each other, but think about those wicked imaginations that's happening.
Hi, Duquann. Thank you. Every time I see your work, I see new things and I learn new things. So thank you for doing this. I wanted to ask you, speaking of imagination, how do you imagine a time when Black people aren't viewed just as under surveillance or in suspicion, and also not just in a way that we're asking them to plead for us to see them as fully human?
Right.
How do you imagine in your work a time when you're just seen for just how you are? And
Great question, because I was thinking about that today, right? And it's simple. I look at it as heaven, right? I look at it as heaven, not in a spiritual sense, but in a sense of glory, right? To be free, to be able to move around, right? To just be who you are, right? That's why I look at it as being heaven. That's what the word that came to me, when, as heaven, a place where we can enjoy ourselves in a loving way, that we can enjoy ourselves and be us without being looked at, just being looked at for who you are, for your hair, your skin color, your height, your weight, your beauty, your everything, that's what I look at it as heaven.
We have one more question.
My question isn't gonna evoke as a positive response in that dialogue, but I'm reflecting on the images of Emory Douglas and the Black Panther Party, and particularly J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI's directive to capture the Black Messiah and to neutralize Black liberation movements, right?
Right.
But similar to what the community member said over there, reiterating the ongoing, I'm thinking about like how in this heightened period of surveillance in the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor rebellions, we've seen an increase of surveillance on organizers, similar to like the times of the Black Panther Party, and how like the FBI is spending billions of dollars to survey and to kidnap and to even at times neutralize organizers like today. And like how I guess one sentence could like encapsulate that is that now we have like drones on top of protests when like people are fighting and advocating for their rights. So like I wonder, where does that like take you?
Right. Great question. I think about that for a while. Would that take, again, it's a barrier, right? But but it's education out there, right? Like when we think about the protests, and I was, part of it, and you were too, and I'm quite sure so many people online and other people are part of that protest and that movement during that time too, right? And still are. But but the education comes about it. It's like the way that, how do we counter that, right? And I remember reading, I think it was a tweet, right, or Instagram post that said, like, when you involved in the protest, turn off your cell phone, right? Have your information in your pocket just in case you get arrested. So, we also found, people found ways to resist that, right? Because the technology is in advance. Sometimes we can't keep up with how it's moving and the money that we put into it. But our voices, right, and our fight, our power, our manpower that we're doing, we just want to continue, and it's going to be a continuation, and it's ongoing. I don't know when it's going to end, but it's just a long fight. It's a long fight. Yeah, we had a question in the back.
Oh, I just wanted to ask about this, to be honest. And thank you for the presentation. My name is Joe.
I just wanted to ask, do you think that part of the reason is for the surveillance in these communities to help police, to help like, those in the community police themselves, like surveillance, you can't watch one of these so much for some. So you think that's a part of the reason why they have?
I mean, I think,
Reason, just part.
yeah, I think that, the city, like city officials, right? And people that, make these decisions of putting surveillance in our community are not looking at alternatives, what we did, what can we do to prevent, crime that's happening or things that was going on. And that takes aggressive policies, right? That takes money, right? We haven't seen, money being, invested in communities that, people say are hotspots in our community, right? I would love to see that. I would love to see that before a community. Like, camera is not going to prevent anyone from doing a crime. It's not, only thing it's going to do is going to probably catch that suspect, but it's not going to prevent a crime from happening. So why are we spending so much money into something that's not going to prevent a crime from happening? Instead of let's try to focus and use our, use an alternative. Like, spend money into the schools, right? Spend money into the arts, spend money on, other things that, provide people opportunities for growth to stray away from a life of crime, right? Like, that's what I would like to see.
I think piggybacking off of that is where like, the community tries to involve like police officers.
Right.
And have it be more personal,
Mhm.
instead of having something like watching where you don't know that you're being watched, having a personal effect can change things. Seeing an officer, speaking to an officer, so I think that's where like things like PAL came about, where you could incorporate and not necessarily feel like this is other entity watching you, at least you know the entity, at least you could relate to the entity. So.
I definitely, I understand that, right? And I get that, right? And I, thinking about that effort, but that same police officer that would, we engage with, or we playing football with, and, playing football with in the court, basketball in the court with, be the same officer that would shoot someone down. I'm making my time. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, hey, love it. Thank you all. I just want to bring attention to where you can find Duquann on Instagram and where you can find our digital Ethnic Futures Consortium on Instagram. Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk? Anybody want to come and approach and ask a question or continue conversation?